assigned a different note or emphasis a lot of times, so even more so than reading. So singing and clapping along can help build that skill. And then yes, don't forget your motor skills. If you have the time to offer some even block play or sorting colors with tongs, those are very good skills that we can offer them, and it's something they absolutely love to do, and they don't really consider it work, but we're kind of still teaching them. So it's a good, sneaky, educational, fun experience. Another thing that we do in our story time is we incorporate ASL, American Sign Language. We pick one word and we reinforce that throughout. Sometimes it might just be snow, or it might be yellow, or pirate, and we do that. And we have signs we put up on the back of our story time wall. And so each week we talk about the ones we've done before, and it's amazing to see the kids are really excited because they remember how to say owl, and so it's really fun. For your younger ones, the ones that struggle communicating, this expands that communication skills. If you're working particularly with children with disabilities, this is also something that can very much help that communication. And it's never too early if you wanted to do this in your Mother Goose time and practice on more and basic milk and stuff. It can help reduce the tantrums in even your youngest children, which is always a bonus for your parents as well. A site that's always my go-to when I'm making sure that I know what the sign is or how to sign it, or sometimes it's also just signed English or finger spelling, is Signing Savvy. I really like this one. It tends to be, so this one is just that. Sometimes it's in signed English, and so we usually, sometimes when we tell them, sometimes there's a difference, but usually people just use it. This is a good site. There's a paid option, but there's the free one too, which works for most of what you would do. The other thing on here is after school programs for your school age kids. One thing we always tried to do a little bit was some STEAM programs. And we actually had, for the longest time, called it specifically STEAM. The problem with that was that the schools finally got on the STEAM bandwagon here, and they were doing STEAM so much in schools, the kids associated this with school part 2, and it became a lot less fun, and they didn't want to come to school part 2. So this year we redesigned it and became the Curiosity Club. Nothing about it has changed except the design of the poster, which actually we did kind of a map structure. And the kids now are like, oh, I saw the map at school. And so that's another thing marketing-wise. If you have the option of using the template where it's the same design each time and you just update it, it can really help, particularly with your kids. Then they know what they look for. And so the kids now, they know that they find the map at school and they know what we're doing that week. So we pretty much do the same type of STEAM activities. This can work really with any age group. We've done different things on engineering where we talk about flight, and we make paper airplanes or straw airplanes, and it's absolutely fun because then they get to throw things. So honestly, it's just a lot of fun. We're really excited. Next week, we're just doing some different snowflake art. And so we have different options that they will get to choose from. And because I always love the art programs for kids because they get to use their hands, it explores different creativity, and everybody's is unique, kind of like a snowflake. So it's kind of the perfect thing for them to do. Other things year round, movie days are really, really easy for pretty much any library to implement across multiple ages, particularly if you're spending money on getting a movie license. This is a good way to get families into the library together. We have one this afternoon because it's early release day, and so we're showing Christopher Robin at 1 because we have early release day this year every Wednesday, the first Wednesday of every month. Our kids are out early in our public schools. And the comment we were getting from parents is, I can't take off work every Wednesday to leave early. And so we've started trying to fill in the gap on early release days to offer some of those special programs. Yes, just make sure you have a movie license that covers it and that you know the rules of what that license is. And I know your consultants probably will have most of those details for you. There are 2 big ones. The the Swank movie licensing, and then MPLC. They kind of cover different things.
There is a question. Someone, Susie, would like to know if she can get a copy of the template of that map to steal.
I can, yes.
Can you post it on the class?
I will post it on there, yes.
Awesome.
Anything that I have like logo-wise, and I've added some of those for some of the other things that I do on there, I'm always willing to share. I would never want you guys to have to reinvent the wheel, so have at it. Steal away.
Thank you.
You're
she
welcome.
actually did it in all caps. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Let's see. Game days are another good option. If you have room to have board games in your library, it's kind of real life social networking for kids. And for us, we have a lot of different games that they don't have at home. And so it gives them a chance to play some new stuff. If anything, get Bugs in the Kitchen. That's my game recommendation. Bugs in the Kitchen. It's hilarious. It's got a little bug. It's a nano bug that moves around the board. They just think it's cool. So it's a good investment. And any of these, really, it's just a matter too of introducing them to the library space. And they have the potential then to use other resources while they are here. And that's really kind of what we want. Some additional things that I want to throw out there are different cheap and easy things that aren't going to take a lot of your time or money. Things that could be a passive program where you set out the materials and the instructions and you don't have to oversee it. One of these is a pop tab bracelet. If you can get your community to bring you pop tabs, you're kind of good forever, because then you just need the stretchy elastic cord. I really like this because it's a little bit of a sneaky way to help them learn pattern recognition, because it's doing the same thing over and over and over and over. And once they pick that up, they're good to go. And it doesn't cost very much. The other picture is do-it-yourself stickers. And that is just markers and contact paper, which some of you probably already have if you're using that to like laminate stuff in your library. It's got wide gender and age appeal. And I keep just a box of already pre-cut different sizes of contact paper. And we just pull that out anytime we need to have a fill-in thing. If we have a ton of kids and we just need to occupy them when they're in here. So it is a great option, and it's not going to cost you all that much money.
Susie says she feels an Earth Day recycling day coming on with the pop tab bracelet idea. Yeah. That would be a lovely
I love making pop tab bracelets. It's so much fun. And recycling stuff and reusing it into something else is just, it's just a wonderful, and it makes you feel good. And they look really fun. I will say too, you can spray paint them as well if you want them to be different colors. And to do that, I always just put them in a box lid and coated them and then shook them and coated them again to try to get them covered. And it works pretty well. They'll ding up after a while, but it'll take a long time for them to get really worn. Let's see. Okay. Other recurring programs that I've done, Lego building. If you can stock up on some Legos, you've got yourself a program that's going to occupy your kids, and you could literally do Legos and just Legos every single week, and I doubt your kids would mind. I will say, yeah, the hardest part is probably finding your Legos cheaply, but if you put word out, if people are clearing out their house, you might get some donated. I will say, if you're having a program, you cannot call it Lego Club. We do Legos, and you'll see that on my poster where it says Legos, but my program is Curiosity Club. The program itself is not called Lego Club. They're very particular, the Lego company, about that name. So I just like to make sure to mention that to libraries, because I see libraries all the time advertising their Lego Club, and it's kind of violating Lego's trademark. So just be mindful of that. Other things are passive programs that you can do, scavenger hunts in your library. This is a picture of Book Spine Poetry. It works really good as an online competition where they build a poem out of book spines and they share it, and maybe you have a winner. It's a good way to get traffic on your social media site. So do think about how you can do those online. Other things that I've had really good success with as recurring programs are bingo. We do this often. I bought a bingo set on Amazon pretty cheaply with just reusable cards, and then we just used like clear chips, and it came with everything. It wasn't too much, and we use it all the time. My teens particularly love bingo. We do it as family events. The adult programming can use it. So it gives you a lot of different versatile options. As long as you have little cheap trinkety prizes to give away, they're usually pretty good. Saturday morning cartoons is something we've had success with in the past. We do new and old. We've actually recently started doing a little more partnering with PBS. And so they offer free screening options that libraries can show stuff before it airs on PBS. So in December, we did their brand new show, or November, we did their brand new show, Let's Go Luna. We've done, before Pinkalicious aired on there, we got to screen some of that first here, and we just built a craft program to do after those. And it's really fun, and I'll try to post some information about that. And I think I actually just got an email like 5 minutes ago from my rep there to find out what the options are that are coming up. So it's just a really good option and partnership. And because they're helping market it, it also increases your reach out into the community and their awareness of what's going on. And my other picture here, you just see a random box of stuff. That is actually just a random box of stuff. We call it like our invention box or our imagination box, and it's just random old puzzle pieces and yarn strips and scraps of paper. And sometimes it's good to just put that out and see what they can create. Then it's something you're not really having to prep, and it doesn't take you pushing them to do stuff. They'll come up with it. It's sort of like free building with Legos, but they have a different medium to work with. So you'd always, and then sometimes you just have to provide a little bit extra where you've got some scissors or tape where they can just create. And they make the most interesting like artwork. So, and they'll think of things we have never thought of. I will say with any of these, just my only thing is don't be afraid to mess up. We've planned programs that as we've started doing them further, we're like, oh, this is not going to work. And we just cancel it and we pick something else. And that's okay. I've had programs that we've literally done them and then they don't work. We made bouncy balls a couple summers ago for a teen program that kind of turned into rocks that like hollowed themselves out. I still have no idea how that happened to this day. But it's still a program that my teens that are now in college, some of them, they still talk about that and they still have their bouncy rock. So even the mistakes are very, very memorable. And sadly, I don't have it here, but I've got a lot of these. I've got a link to my blog at the end that has a lot of different craft suggestions. Some of the things I do all the time. One of them is Franken-Toys, but they're downstairs because kids were playing with them yesterday. And that's stuffed animals that we get from the local thrift store that are getting ready to be chucked away, and we cut them apart and then they make new creations. And they're fun, it's quirky, my teens love it. They get to play mad scientist. It's kind of the perfect pairing to like have Toy Story on in the background and they can kind of be Sid. And the things that they build are hilarious. So it's a good way to get your teens to practice sewing. But it's, which is kind of horrifying. I can't even begin to say how funny it is watching teens try to thread a needle for the first time. So, but this is kind of, that's my rough spiel on year-round programming. Now we're gonna talk a little bit about summer programming. I'm guessing probably all of you are probably doing the CSLP theme this summer, the Universe of Stories. I'm seeing some nodding. I'm really excited. I'm totally digging the space theme. I've been looking forward to this and I've been planning this for, well, a couple years now. Once I knew what it was, I was like, this is exactly what I can't wait for. First thing to talk about is the reading component with how you want them to track their reading. And it's probably going to be different with what you do from like your early literacy kids, your school age kids, your teens. They might all be doing something different, and that's okay. Ours often is that way. Where are they counting books? Are they counting time spent reading? Are they counting the number of pages? Are you rewarding them at different levels? We're tentatively planning on trying something new this year. We're mimicking another library that I've spoken with that they give a book when they sign up and they don't get anything else. And they've had good success because then they're starting them off with something and they're not rewarding them for reading because reading isn't a chore. it's something fun. And their theory is based on the book Drive by Pink, that they don't need to be motivated for something that they love to do. And so we're kind of taking that but doing our own spin on it. So hopefully at the end of the summer, I'll kind of have an idea of whether or not this works for our community. But we're cautiously optimistic. And if I can get a new book into the hands of every single child in my community, I'm going to call that a win. So, but really excited for that. Let's see. Programming side of things. I'm keeping this really simple. On my blog, you're probably going to start seeing a lot of different ideas. These ones are geared more towards the kid side of things. Space gives us a lot to work with, particularly in the realm of art. Glitter is sometimes the bane of our existence, but I have a feeling it's going to be my best friend this summer because it's just perfect. I'm going to put that in slime. We're going to make some space slime. But you know, you've got one side where it's kind of a starry night motif, and on the other side, it's using aluminum foil to make a moon. So it's using these different mediums that are probably not going to cost you very much, but how many different ways can you create space-themed artwork? Maybe it's giving them different shapes of construction paper in a story time and having them build a rocket ship, and everybody's rocket ship is going to be different shapes and different colors. But that's kind of my early literacy thing. I've got a lot more down the pike for my teens in particular, but I know I've got at least one summer presentation that I'll be visiting to do teen programming, so I don't want to spoil too much of that, but you'll see some ideas for that coming up on the site I'm going to give you at the end too. So, any questions on programming right now? Okay, all right, we've got one more little stop here to make, which is about networking and collaboration. And the first part of that is really your local schools.
We did actually have a question come in. What was the book title, Passive Program? Was that the poetry one, I think?
The poetry one, was that the one, was that the Vampire Story Sold Elsewhere, or was it my motivating book? This one?
Vampire, so the poetry one.
Oh, okay, yes. Yes, that was our book spine poetry of, let me back up. There we go. So yes, this is about taking like the title from each book and building a poem out of it. I do this with teens a lot, and the poetry that they create sometimes is either hilarious or heartbreaking, and I swear there's never a middle ground. But it's funny because they will create things that I would never have thought of, but it's always hilarious. Another thing that we do a lot of, and I guess I have mine up here, but I think I put it downstairs too, is blackout poetry with discarded books. We tear out pages and then they pick their words and they create their poem, and then they do a design and black out everything but the words. They highlight the words that make the poem. It's which is perfect as an April program for Poetry Month too. So yeah, so we love that. Okay. All right, back to school. Okay, when you get to when you're working with your schools, one of your first easiest thing is if you've got a preschool class, doing a story time outreach there. That's literally what I just came from a little bit ago, was visiting a preschool right before I came here. My assistant is currently at another one. Our school district now, all of our public schools have not only the 4-year-old room, but they all have a 3-year-old room, and 2 of them have a combination 3- and 4-year-old room. So we go to as many as we can. We have a Catholic school as well. We're starting to add them in. We've got 2 other churches that have preschools, and we visit their classrooms. And it's easy for us because we sometimes, if it's a younger one, if they just want a 20-minute one, we do that. If we do a 30-minute one, we started this year because we have so many of them that have both the 3 and the 4, that we scheduled them at the same time, so both of us can just go together we do them at the same time, and then we're done. So if you have that as an option, but some of you, it just depends on how many staff you have in your library too, with what you can do with that. Another thing that we do, which I'll be doing again at the end of this month for one of our school age, for like our 4th and 5th grade rooms, is book talks. I love going and just promoting titles that I think they'll love. Sometimes I'll just tell them briefly about it. Other times, if I can, I always try to read the first chapter of the book to really get them involved with it. And that's an easy thing to do with pretty much any school age or teen group. If you can get into their English classrooms or their library time, it's a good chance for you to highlight your collection and remind them that you're there. And honestly, some of that's just about getting to them so they can see your face. After school clubs at your school, for us, our local Y has a program that they do at the school. So sometimes we'll go and we'll do an offshoot there for them, and we'll take our materials. Sometimes it's just our box of Legos. We put it on a wheelie cart and we take it to them, which is good. It gives us some extra outreach programming numbers. And again, it makes sure they're comfortable with us. So if they do come into the library, they already have that relationship built. Another option too is always, for some of libraries, they always want to do a book club, but then you struggle getting the kids to the library to do the book club. A lot of libraries have very good success doing a book club at the school, like over lunchtime. So then you kind of have your brown bag book club and you just do it over lunch. It's going to reach those who can't come to the library for one reason or another. Within the realm of school, don't forget your homeschool families. If you have a large homeschool population, it's good to reach out to them, see what you can offer them. Make sure at least if they want to come in and do some instruction on how to use your online databases that are available through the library or through the state library, that they know how to do that. For us, we just had our homeschool families in to talk about how they can do our downloadable ebooks and audiobooks through the state. And so it was a good just resource because a lot of them didn't know that was even an option. When you get started with your schools, the planning doesn't need to be anything formal. You don't need meetings and committees or working lunches or emails. Just find one other person at the school who's passionate about working with you and start small when you get started. It's the best way to get going. Also then, looking in this is your community. If you have your local extension office, a lot of them have pre-made presentations that are either good for your kids or possibly your adult programming. So reach out to them and see. Local businesses, if they're willing to sponsor a program, particularly big summer ones, some of them want their names on things. And for them, it's often a tax-deductible contribution. So they might be willing to do that. Or if they want to lead a session, if you have somebody who's a financial expert in your community that would like to talk about financial planning or helping kids who are graduating so they're prepared for college and dealing with loans and things like that. Or even if you have your local businesses that want to donate prizes or coupons for their services for your programs for prizes. Also within your community, any local events and fairs that you can go to, you're often going to reach non-patrons. Which is great. So if you have a local parade and you can march in it and hand out bookmarks or stickers, or set up a booth just so they know that you're there. Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts are another terrific one. I will say I worked with the Girl Scouts a couple of years ago to do an outreach club at my library. They sent me a giant box of supplies. It didn't cost the kids anything to sign up, and then they were officially a Girl Scout through the outreach club without membership fees and no stress to sell cookie sales. It was all STEAM-related materials. Boys could come too, and they did not have a problem with coming too because there were Girl Scout cookies at the event. And so it was honestly just a lot. It was just a lot of fun to work with them and have that kind of a partnership. Your other thing is your fellow librarians. Like we talked about with sharing the poster, don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. If somebody's already doing something right and they've got it created, just see what you can piggyback off of. We're all here to help each other. I will say I've got a list on Moodle for different listservs that I recommend signing up for. Some of them are a little more heavily used than others, but they're all really good resources for connecting with other librarians, throughout the country. Another one is also in our state, the Kansas Library. It's the youth services section through our KLA, which isn't really a section anymore. We're kind of like a sub part of the public library section now, but we do still have a Facebook page. So if you ever need assistance or anything, this is another good place to just come, and some of us can just try to help each other out, because that's really what we want to do. And the last part of really our networking collaboration is basically the whole world. With technology being what it is and Pinterest existing, there's really everything's at your fingertips now. Pinterest for programming ideas is wonderful, and Goodreads is also just a great place too for particularly readers advisory. So if you are talking to a kid about the book they loved, I'm gonna just click on this one real quick. This might be a bad sample if it's not up here. Up here in the top, they usually have the like a readers also liked section, readers also enjoyed. This is a good go-to place if you're ever in a hurry to just click on that and go through the list of, okay, well, these people also liked all of these books, so chances are maybe mine will too. It can help give you at least a good start on a read-alike list. Another good place world-wise is the Teen Librarian Toolbox, and this is one of the resources I do have in the Moodle. It's through the school library journal now. It hasn't always been, but their content is always really good. They have good marketing materials that you can also use, good read-alike lists that they've started, programming suggestions, how to deal with certain issues related to teens. So it's a good kind of jumping off point. Issues related to teen. I also have some resources on the Moodle class for the teen brain. Sometimes as adults, we forget what it was like to be a teenager, and as fun as I'm sure we all remember our teen years being, it's always important for us to remind ourselves and our staff that we're still dealing with a demographic that they're getting hormones now, that they have no impulse control because they're still waiting for their prefrontal cortex to develop. So it's important that we always remind ourselves that.
We have, speaking of Facebook groups, going back just a second, Colleen says that Storytime Underground and Programming Librarian interest groups have also been really useful for her.
Yes, I love those. Storytime Underground is great. There's a local Kansas one, but it's not as heavily used as the national one. There's also a Teen Services Underground as well. My other place, I feel like I'm forgetting one that I really love. Storytime Underground. There's also one too for any of you who are doing senior programming. There is a Senior Programming at Your Library Facebook group as well. It's not used very much. I always kind of hope that more people will use that, but it's not used as heavily as I want. But Teen Services Underground is also a really good one. There's many Facebook groups pretty much devoted to anything you can think of. There's some that are specifically for children's after school clubs, and it's just about finding those right ones that are actually talking about what you need to hear. Okay, is there any other questions or comments? I will say briefly too, the homework for this class, you'll find it on the class site, and it's basically discussion questions. I just want to make sure everybody participates and talks into at least one of those. Sharing something you're doing well, asking questions on things you need, help with. Basically, that's kind of what the point of this is just making sure that you guys are set and ready to go with serving your youth as well as you possibly can. Oh, I did have one other note, because I know it was something that is always a question that pops up in those discussion questions, is how to attract teens to your program, because they are busy. They're really busy, and we are fighting against a lot of other options that they have. When you are making your programming schedule, do consider doing it as a pattern, making sure it's a regular day and time. That can help immensely with you. I have teens that show up because they know that it's this day, this time, there's something at the library, and they come here. They have no idea what we're doing. They don't particularly care. They just know they need to come. It makes it easier for them to remember to show up. And honestly, just ask them, what do you want to do? What would get you to come? Because if they're helping you create it, they're going to advocate for it. And that word of mouth is the best way you're going to attract your team. And get into the schools if you can.
All right. Brandy says thank you. She really enjoyed the session. Great info and ideas. And Susie seconds that. Yeah, with lots of great stuff. I thought that this was going to automatically record because that's a new thing. And apparently I did not set it. So I got everything from the programming on. The collection development stuff at the very beginning, I did not, but it's pretty much, we can just point them to last year's.
Yes. I think the content is pretty much the same. I don't know if there was much in that section that would be different from last year's.
Right. So what I'm going to suggest,
most of those resources are good. They always stay the
right.
same. So.
Right. So I'll suggest that they watch last year's collection development. And then when you start talking about programming, they can switch over here. Because as soon as you started talking about programming, I got the recording going and I got everything else. But I just missed the collection development stuff entirely. So, so I'll send that out this afternoon. Getting more thank yous, and this is motivating, and
I hope so. I do have, I guess, one more page. I didn't actually. My contact information, and as well as the blog where you'll find hopefully some really good content for you. But yes, if you have any further questions or assistance that you need, don't hesitate to reach out. I still have some from past ones that I occasionally hear from when they have some random questions. So, and the blog, we're sometimes spotty. It's two of us who do it, and I had a problem with some of my postings, so I temporarily took them away so I could fix them because we were having some problem with some links, photos being dead content.
All right. Well, lots of thank yous. Great job. We appreciate you doing this for us every year. It's always excellent. So, all right. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll get that email out with last year's collection development and this year's programming.
Okay.
And I guess I can stop the recording now.